If you didn't recognize that, that was the first two measures of Spoon River, an American folk dance by Percy Aldridge Granger. Hi, I'm Matthew Lynn, and welcome to another exciting installment of How to Be a Percussionist. Today, we'll be learning how to hold 4 mallets. Now, you can say, hold on, Matthew Lynn, hold on. I already know how to hold 4 mallets. Watch. Right there. Just like this. And I can say, yes, the cross-stick grip is one way to hold 4 mallets. However, I would say back to you that you take a pencil. How do you hold your pencil? How do you write on a piece of paper? Do you hold it like this and write, or do you hold it sort of like this and write? Both ways will produce handwriting, and both are generally legible. However, one might be preferred and look a little bit better than another. As such, today I'd like to teach you the Lee Stevens grip, I believe it's called, of way of holding 4 mallets. The reason I don't like the cross-stick grip is the fact that you have many limitations. The first is your length of your interval. To steadily hold your mallets in a cross-stick grip, much of your mallet is buried at the bottom of your hand, and as such, your mallets are shorter from the top of your hand, and you're limited by how wide your interval can be. Conversely, when you try to play a very close interval, you can't play it very close because your fingers are in the way. You can't play much thinner than a fifth or a fourth if you have really thin fingers. Additionally, when you're opening and closing the intervals, you have different ways of doing so. To open up the interval, you take your thumb and your middle pointer finger and you extend. But to close it, you take your middle finger and you squeeze them back together. I don't like that. That's a little inconsistent as well. To correct all this, instead, I'd like to teach you a Lee Stevens grip. It still takes 2 mallets in one hand, but instead, you'll start with your inner mallet, take your palm, stick it right there, take your middle finger, thumb, and then pointer like this. With your remaining 2 fingers, pick up your inner mallet. You now have the Lee Stevens grip. Now, how do we deal with the limitations as we discussed before? Well, first, we have a much wider length of a much wider potential interval because, most of our mallet is not down here. It's out in front of us, so we can play much farther. Firstly, if we want to shrink that interval, we can do so because our fingers are not pinched in the same way as the cross-stick grip. Also, to change our interval, we have the same way of extending as retracting our fingers. What we do is we take our pointer finger, or rather our pointer finger and our middle finger, and we take our mallet and we roll that between these 2 fingers and our thumb. So what we can do is we go like this and like this to close and open up the interval. This provides a lot more control and is generally recommended if you wish to get a little bit more advanced within the 4-mallet study. This is generally recommended because it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? One final thing to note, though, is that 4 mallets using the Lee Stevens grip will require a vertical wrist movement. If you think about snare, you will always play snare using a horizontal wrist movement. You can take a quarter like this and you can play up and down, and you can make sure that your hands, well, ideally the quarter doesn't fall off because you know what you're doing, but you take a quarter and you can move your wrist up and down, and the quarter generally shouldn't fall off. However, using the vertical wrist movement, you could put a quarter there, but it's just going to fall off immediately because nothing's there to keep it there. You also use this vertical wrist movement when you play drum set, also when you play timpani, and also with this 4-mallet Lee Stevens. So now that we've got how to hold the mallets properly and how to properly move your wrists, let's get to maybe a bit more technique and building up some strength. Actually, no, I lied. One more thing to note is that when you do hold this initially, you are going to want to have your hands like this. That's not going to help because your mouth's just going to fall out of your fingers. You need to have your wrists vertical so that way your fingers can balance your mallet like that. However, when you do put your mallets to the keyboard, you'll find with a completely vertical wrist that one of your mallets is higher than the other. Well, you just correct that by sort of extending your pointer finger and allowing you to have horizontal mallets on the keyboard and with a vertical wrist. One way to think about it is if you take a mug like this, and you hold your mug like this, right? You don't hold your mug like this. And yes, this is mine. It was a gift from the pressing machine. Don't worry about that. Let's move on to strengthening your wrist. When you're holding your mallets, the difference between this and the cross stick is that with cross stick you are having much more control with how you hold your mallets. You're using 3 fingers on 2 different mallets, and these 2 are just kind of for changing the interval. It's a lot steadier. Using the Lee Stevens, however, you're only really using your bottom 2 fingers for holding this mallet, and you're really only using your pointer and your middle finger for the top mallet. And so it does require a bit more finger strength, it does require a bit more wrist strength. Well, let's work on one thing at a time. Let's first work on developing that vertical motion. So what we can do is put our mallets on 1 and 3 and play thirds. You can work your way up and down the octave. You can also try different scales if you'd like. This will focus solely on getting you strength in that vertical wrist motion. Now, what if you want to work on changing the interval? That's the next step, right? You roll using your thumb, pointer, and middle finger. That's not something you do with the cross stick grip. That's another new thing. What you can do now is you can start on thirds, but you will extend outwards to fourths, fifths, and beyond. You can work again, work your way all the way up to eighth and back down again. It's very important to remember that you're only using your wrist in a vertical motion. You're not playing with your elbow, you're not playing with your shoulder, you're not jumping up and down. Every time you do that, you lose a lot of control and a lot of really good sound quality that you could have had otherwise, just your wrists. Finally, after you've worked on the first two, getting that vertical wrist motion and working on changing the interval, you can maybe work on individual mallets. And what you can do is you need much more of a twisting motion to get individual mallets to play by themselves. And what you can do is still using thirds, but work your way up and down the scale individually. Oops. And you can work your way back down as well. If you want to try maybe combining two different motions, remember you're always going to be using a vertical, you will generally always be either using a vertical wrist movement or a twisting wrist movement. If you want to try maybe something else, you can also try just playing your scales individually. And back down again as well. Or if you want to try something a little weirder, you can also try playing just, your arpeggio. All of these different motions will help you work on both the twisting wrist motion as well as the vertical wrist motion, as well as changing the interval. All four of those things are very, very important in learning how to hold properly the Lee Stevens 4-mallet grip. One final thing I would like to show you is how to roll using one hand. You may think, oh, well, that's really hard. Well, yeah, kind of. What you need to do is build up the wrist strength, just like anything else. You can start using singles. Then, once you've got that down and your fingers, stop having blisters after a while, you can go a little faster. And then even faster. And then, sometimes if you're able to do it, or if you're able to wire your brain in the right way, or if you just think and focus really hard, you can roll. And again, you can try and work your way up and down the octave. Finally, if you don't want to, try the exercises with it that I've just stated just now, you can also get a rudimentary piano book, such as this one. You can flip through it and pick a few different exercises. Not many of them require more than 4 notes, which is nice because, you only have 4 mallets. And, you can just try each of them. You can pick different ones like this, and you can, again, have another way to build up wrist strength. One final thing I would like to show you all is if you can try these two-handed. It will take a while, because you'll have to do them one hand singly, then the other hand singly, and you try the other exercise, you try the exercise on the other hand. What you can try is if you combine both exercises. So for example, if you want to play your scales, you could cut their time in half by playing them 2 hands at once. And again, you can always work on 2 octaves, work your way up using circle of fourths with the other scales. You work your way up using circle of fifths. You can work up chromatically, upwards or downwards. There are many ways to practice your scales. There are many ways to practice your third intervals, changing your intervals, rolling, things like that. It's always very important to remember to work on your 4-mallet scales. Now, so to review briefly, remember, vertical wrist motion, twisting wrist motion, changing the interval, and moving with only your wrists. I'm Matthew Lynn, and this has been another episode of How to Be a Percussionist. I hope you all enjoy your day.